Hey, what's happening, Herpers? So I'm back with this month's patron-chosen video all about some of the most bizarre uses for reptiles and their parts that you have ever seen. I have 5 uses picked out for today's video, along with a bonus snake venom product I found being advertised right here on YouTube while doing the research for this video. I have saved that one for last because it's pretty crazy and I sure wouldn't put it on my face. So if learning about some of the strangest uses of reptiles and their parts sounds interesting to you, hit the like button, let me know what you think of these reptile products in the comments, and come along. So speaking of reptile parts, my rattlesnake Spot just shed some of his parts. So while I discuss today's topic and go over some of the most bizarre uses for reptiles, I'll be peppering in some footage of getting Spot out of there and getting his habitat cleaned. Sound good? Cool. So while I'm getting Spot out of here, he is a western diamondback, and that reminds me of one of the first reptile products a lot of people will think of, even if it doesn't have the best connotation, and that is snake oil. Now, the version of snake oil that most of us are going to think of was said to be made from rattlesnakes like Spot here, and was sold as a miracle cure-all. The biggest problem with this was that there was no evidence for or historical use of rattlesnake oil as being a cure for anything, let alone a cure-all. Unless you ask the rattlesnakes used to sell the oil, in which case their biggest problem with snake oil was probably being cut open and thrown into boiling water in front of audiences by a 19th century Billy Mays or ShamWow guy. This was done to demonstrate how oil was harvested by first boiling a live rattlesnake that had been cut down the belly, and then skimming the healing oils from the surface of the water. And if you are horrified by this process, that's how you know it's working. Which sounds weird, but it really was all about the spectacle, because after the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, the government had the ability to seize a shipment of snake oil in 1917 and found that the famous Clark Stanley snake oil liniment did not contain any, drumroll, snake oil. In truth, it was all about using the gruesome spectacle to make Americans think they were buying something more akin to Chinese snake oil that was derived from Chinese water snakes and actually did have a long history of use, as well as evidence for its efficacy as a joint pain reliever. This version of snake oil was brought to the US by Chinese immigrants that had a huge role in building America's railroads. And unlike American snake oil, the Chinese water snake used in Chinese snake oil was actually pretty high in omega-3 fatty acids and was used specifically to help with joint pain. Side note, we now know things like fish oil are even higher in omega-3, so there's no need to go track down Chinese water snake oil for your aches and pains. But back to the snake oil being sold in the American West. Some research has now shown that rattlesnakes contain less than half the omega-3 as Chinese water snakes, so perhaps that's why Clark Stanley decided not to put any snake oil in the snake oil at all. Or maybe it just turned out to be far more profitable to appropriate the history of Chinese snake oil and then sell the sizzle, so to speak, with a live rattlesnake murder. Luckily, thanks to laws like the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, we can rest easy knowing the FDA has the authority to test all foods and drugs to make sure they actually are what you think you're buying. Unless the people selling it to you decide to call it a supplement, but that's a different video for a different channel. So that was a rocky first example, but it does not mean all reptile products are frauds. The second reptile product I want to discuss today is Exenatide, which was sold under the names Byetta and Bidurion Visais. I think that's... I'm not a doctor. Anyway, it's sold under the names Byetta and Bidurion and comes from one of my favorite reptiles, the Gila monster. Exenatide is a drug that helps people manage type 2 diabetes by mimicking a hormone in mammals that increases insulin secretion and regulates blood sugar levels. The coolest thing about Exenatide, in my opinion, is that it was discovered by Gila monsters. Kinda. Researchers doing an analysis of Gila monster venom found a peptide in their venom called Exendin-4 that stimulated the pancreas into producing more insulin and keeping it free in the body longer by acting as a GLP-1 receptor agonist. In really, really simple terms, basically Exendin-4 presses the pancreas's give me more insulin button. This discovery later led to making the synthetic pharmaceutical version of Exenatide. This synthetic Gila monster protein, Exenatide, was approved by the FDA in 2005 and continues to be used for now. That may be changing though, as concerns over the long-term effects of Exenatide on the pancreas and risk of pancreatic cancer are looked into further, alongside the backdrop of more advanced GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic becoming very popular. If you follow health and medicine news or even celebrity gossip, you have probably heard of Semaglutide, which has taken the place of Exenatide in these next-generation GLP-1 receptor drugs. Semaglutide, being the active ingredient in Ozempic, Rybelsus, and Wegovy, have been hailed as an even better solution for helping people manage type 2 diabetes and has become the new miracle weight loss drug among the rich and famous. Unfortunately, these new GLP-1 agonists have become controversial as more wealthy people use them for the off-label purpose of weight loss and drive a shortage, putting the drug out of reach of the diabetic population it was originally intended for and has been more thoroughly researched for. while others raise concerns of semaglutide leading to unhealthy weight loss that results in losing more muscle than fat, as well as the less serious condition dubbed Ozempic face. So what does all that mean? Well, like a lot of things in science, more research is necessary, but we do know that Exenatide was discovered through researching Gila monster venom and that it has been helping people manage diabetes for nearly 20 years and has now led to developing even more powerful GLP-1 agonists that are not only effective for people with diabetes, but are also showing signs of being useful for weight loss and possibly even for breaking drug addiction patterns. This is all very exciting research, and even though it doesn't actually contain any reptile parts or venom, I felt these drugs belonged on this list because we have the Gila monster to thank for the breakthrough that originally sent scientists down this avenue of discovering and researching this class of drug in the first place. Moving on to the next crazy use of reptiles, it's not just pharmaceutical companies using reptiles to make drugs. Sometimes it's just people trying to get high. There's a growing trend, or at least awareness of, people using various venoms and poisons to achieve or enhance a recreational high. People milk the poison glands of toads to smoke their poison, they roast scorpions and smoke the venom from their tails, and perhaps most extremely, some people even allow cobras to bite them for the ultimate drug experience. This is a phenomenon I've heard of for years, but I've had a hard time finding much information on why people would seek this high and how they're able to reliably survive it. In 2018, a case report was published about some users of cobra venom in the northwestern part of Rajasthan, India, were partaking in this practice. Users seek out snake wranglers who specialize in keeping cobras for this purpose and are even said to have different snakes with different levels of potency for users to choose from. So what I'm hearing is if you try a cobra venom with your friends and have a horrible experience, there's always going to be that one guy that just insists you haven't had the right strain yet. Come on, man, I know the Naja Ganja didn't agree with you, but this snake milk haze totally hits different. It was also mentioned that these snake charmers are particularly choosy about who they will share/sell cobra bites to. This choosiness of the dealers combined with the cobras of varying degrees of potency might hold some of the answer of how people are able to use this drug, but the administration method will leave you speechless. No, literally, it might leave you speechless because users often take the bite right on the tip of the tongue. Although, some people opt to be bitten on the toes. Let me know in the comments, would you rather be bitten on the tongue or the toes? Anyway, after receiving the bite, it is not uncommon for the user to convulse, have blurred vision, and even black out. But if the user wakes up from the blackout, they wake up with a sense of well-being and alertness that can last 3 to 4 weeks. A detail that I think sheds some light on this phenomenon is the fact that it seems most users of cobra venom also abuse opioids and have severe opioid addictions. What is amazing is users of cobra venom often voluntarily discontinue use of other drugs they are addicted to, like alcohol or opioids, during the 3 to 4 week high following envenomation. Users report losing all cravings for opioids and do not experience withdrawals until the effects of the cobra venom subside. So, like with all fascinating discoveries, more research is needed. But let me know what you think of this, because I would love to talk about it in the comments and hear your thoughts on how these people are able to survive cobra bites so reliably, how it seems to pause going through withdrawals, and what you would name your strain of recreational cobra venom. I'm really looking forward to that one. And remember, just say no to cobras, kids.
What do I look like? A hippie?
Besides the incredible risk to users of cobra venom, this use is also troubling because the snakes are not kept in good conditions, and I can't imagine they have a good quality of life. Thank goodness we live in America, where animal cruelty towards snakes is totally outlawed. Wait, what?
What you're about to see is animal abuse that is not only legal, but celebrated in Texas. Every year, Sweetwater, Texas hosts the Rattlesnake Roundup, where thousands of rattlesnakes are collected, tormented, and killed in the name of fun. These snakes are skinned and displayed, and for a small fee, children can try their hand at skinning snakes and adding their bloody handprint to the event's mural.
Unbelievable use for reptiles. Number 4. Rattlesnake Roundups. Rattlesnake Roundups are essentially county fairs that revolve around the sport of killing as many rattlesnakes as possible. Cover your ears. Just kidding, he doesn't have ears, but he can still hear, and if you want to know how that works, I do have a video on that topic as well. But anyway, back to this video. Rattlesnake Roundups are essentially county fairs that revolve around the sport of killing as many rattlesnakes as possible. I hesitate to call it a sport because there's nothing sportsmanlike about the methods used to capture rattlesnakes. One of the most egregious methods of capturing the rattlesnakes involves spraying gasoline down random holes to flush out anything living in them, which of course hurts the rattlesnakes as well as the environment and anything else that might be living in those holes. Every year, hundreds of rattlesnakes are killed at these events, and the tradition is passed down to children who are encouraged to make handprints in the gratuitous amounts of rattlesnake blood while getting photos with headless snakes. These roundups still take place in Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Texas. And I felt the need to include rattlesnake roundups on this list because the reason they have not been banned is that it is yet another weird use for reptiles. Reptiles may not be getting put into a specific product unless you count boots, as no reputable lab would ever buy venom milked at a roundup, but they are still being treated as a disposable product in the sense that they are used to drive tourism to towns like Sweetwater, Texas, where these events are held and seen both as a long-standing tradition and a big revenue source for small towns. What sucks is it really doesn't have to be this way. Some states have moved to ban rattlesnake roundups and have replaced them with rattlesnake fairs, so they can still keep the tradition alive and retain the money these events bring in. At these revamped rattlesnake fairs, pits of dead rattlesnakes are replaced with education displays of various species in the area. Rattlesnake skinning for kids can be replaced with non-venomous snake encounters that teach kids snakes are not monsters, as well as giving them an opportunity to learn about the important role snakes play in the ecosystem. Qualified agencies could also offer instructions to adults on how to safely relocate and live alongside rattlesnakes to still give the event the hands-on feeling some crave. I don't think any of these changes would ruin rattlesnake roundups. If anything, I think making these changes would be the way of keeping this tradition alive, unless of course they don't actually care about the tradition and just want an excuse to kill animals, feel big, and screw up the environment in the process. I'm not sure how much longer it will be active, but there is currently a change.org petition I found over on the Exotic Pet Vets Instagram page that I have linked under this video. If you think rattlesnake roundups in their current barbaric form should be stopped, this is a place you can make that opinion heard. So before it is too late, please go sign the petition. This is even more important than hitting the like button, and it really only takes 2 minutes and like 4 mouse clicks. So there's really no excuse not to. Heck, you can even open a tab and do it while I talk about the last strange use for reptiles and the bonus reptile product I found being sold here on YouTube. As I mentioned, there is no legitimate use for venom milked at rattlesnake roundups, but the rattlesnakes killed at these events can end up fueling one side of the reptile product industry, and that is fashion. Using scales for fashion, whether it's in rattlesnake hat bands, alligator boots, or python purses, have a long history going back over 100 years. The trend, similarly to snake oil, started with a sort of fixation on things said to be exotic and from the East. Louis Vuitton is credited with being one of the first companies to capitalize on this Western fixation on the mysterious and exotic in the fashion industry. Louis Vuitton launched their first line of exotic skin bags and suitcases in 1892 that included snake, seal, and ostrich skin lined bags, and this trend has unfortunately continued to today. Alligator farms, python farms, and rattlesnake roundups continue to supply the fashion industry despite growing controversy over the practice. But there is some good news on this front. While brands like Louis Vuitton don't seem interested in moving away from using animal products, plenty of other brands have been willing to take steps towards using less animal products. Adidas, Nike, Prada, and Gucci have all developed and begun using various plant-based synthetic leathers that have the same great taste for half the calorie. Same great fashion taste with half the cruelty, and for the most part, lower emissions and environmental costs. Unfortunately for reptiles in particular, people tend not to care about their suffering as much as other animals, so even the companies that have given up using fur and are pivoting from using leather are reluctant to move away from using reptile skin. So sadly, for the foreseeable future, the fashion industry will likely continue to sell some bizarre reptile products until people stop buying them. I would say until it is made illegal, but it technically was made illegal to sell alligator, crocodile, snake, hippo, and lizard skins in California back in 1970. But as you can probably tell by glancing at red carpet events and celebrity brand deals, lobbyists and fashion industry interests kept the law from going into effect for 50 years until animal rights groups finally got companies to obey the law in 2020 through social media campaigns and public demand. Now, this is a ban on these unethical products in just one state, but thanks to the size of California's fashion market, it has the ability to set trends that will affect much more than just fashion in California. The pressure of these companies to start obeying the 1970 exotic animal ban, as well as receiving more scrutiny from younger, more environmentally conscious consumers, has already caused Ann Taylor, Adidas, Bebe, Diane von Furstenberg, H&M, L Brands, Nike, Puma, Stella McCartney, Topshop, Victoria Beckham, and Victoria's Secret to discontinue the use of exotic animal leathers and fur in all markets, before the 1970s California ban was even made enforceable. So while it is a little victory, it's still a victory and is hopefully a sign of the fashion industry slowly moving out of the 1800s and into the 21st century. So that is it. Those were 5 of the strangest uses for reptiles. Some are really cool, others are downright frightening, and some are just kind of sad. But like I teased at the beginning of this video, I saw one more so-called reptile product being sold right here on YouTube Shorts. It was advertised as harnessing the power of snake venom to cure wrinkles. But before I tell you about this last product and why you might not want to try it, I would like to thank all of my patrons who support this channel and voted for this video topic, starting with my head herpers: Allie Ward, Amanda Lynn, Deborah Torgerson, and I've got to mention that I'm not sure if I glitched or if my Patreon glitched or what happened, but I left you off of last week's credits, so I'm sorry, Deborah, and extra thanks to you this week: Jane Cabin Girl, JCH, Lindsay Justice, Loki and Thor, Sierra Sicard, Tiffany H, and Travis Lawson. Thank you for all of your support at the highest tier level every month, and thank you to all of the patrons of the other tier levels whose names are scrolling up your screen now. You all make it possible for me to make these videos as often as I do, and it really means a lot to me, so thank you. And with that, here's the last product I scrolled upon right here on YouTube. It is Syn-Ake venom for your face.
The spider.
Syn-Ake, Syn-Ake. I guess it's probably pronounced like snake. Similarly to the diabetes medications that were inspired by Gila monster venom, snake serum is a synthetic peptide made by a Swedish company called Petition Ltd. And was inspired by a peptide found in temple viper venom called Waglerin-1, which prevents sodium uptake of muscles, thereby paralyzing any area the peptide is applied to, similar to how botulinum bacteria is used to create botulinum toxin for Botox. This paralytic effect is then said to smooth and prevent wrinkles, while the underlying muscles remain paralyzed for a short time. Unfortunately, there has been very limited research on the long-term effects and almost no large third-party studies on the product. Those in favor of the treatment and those selling it make claims of over 50% wrinkle reduction in a month, negligible side effects, and boast getting to enjoy a much simpler application than patients receiving Botox, while others have claimed the product caused their skin to burn and swell and was ultimately unusable for them. Others still have raised the concern that if Waglerin-1 is a small enough peptide to be absorbed topically into muscles, which it would need to be, or at least you would think it would need to be effective, then that means it could be carried to other parts of the body through the bloodstream, and that may cause complications after prolonged use. And like the supplement loophole that prevents the FDA from regulating or testing energy drinks if you call them a supplement, there's a somewhat gray area around peptides because they are just a chain of amino acids too short to be called a protein, which makes it hard for the FDA to regulate it. So until something changes, using venom-based peptides in beauty products is just going to come down to trusting these companies that the products they sell are what they say they are and that they are completely safe. For me, there's not a chance in hell I would use these products for any prolonged period without more third-party testing. But what do you think? Would you try a Viper Venom facial? How about any of the other reptile products in this video? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and with that, this concludes September's Patreon chosen video. Thank you again to all of the patrons who keep this channel going and chose this topic. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I hope none of you are watching this on a Cobra Venom come down, but most of all, I hope that you just keep herping.